This is a budget gaming PC that I just built. It looks pretty good and it consists of an $80 CPU and GPU combo that I bought off of my Facebook marketplace. This computer provides a decent playing experience at 1080p, and the important thing is it's affordable and it's also upgradable. So today I will show you exactly how to build it, the performance you can expect from it, and the performance you can expect from it if you decided to put some money towards it and upgrade it. This video is sponsored by Super CDK. If you just built a gaming PC or you're flipping computers, then you need to activate Windows on your builds. Go ahead and visit them down below. They have Windows 10, Windows 11, and even discounted game keys. Add whatever key you want to your cart. Be sure to use the discount code SPLA to save a little bit of extra money on checkout. Activating the key is super simple. Just copy and paste it straight into your window activation settings, click activate, and bam, Windows is activated. Thank you Super CDK, and be sure to visit them down below. So this PC build started with a scroll on my Facebook marketplace, and I happened to come across this listing for $100. It was a CPU and GPU, and the seller said, I call this the build your own PC special. This CPU/GPU combo pairs well together and produces PS4 equivalent performance. I ended up shooting them an offer of $80 and they accepted, but unfortunately they were an hour away from me and it was kind of hard to find a time to go drive down there. So I asked them if they would ship it. They did, but of course I did pay for it. A few days later and we got the package. I'll be honest though, I bought these parts all the way back in December. I just kind of forgot about them. I haven't even opened them up yet, so hopefully they work. Alright, I'm about to test these parts. I'm kind of worried about this Ryzen 3. Alright, CPU installed. It at least went in. No pins are bent. And GPU's installed. Moment of truth, baby. I'm just getting everything plugged in. Flip the power switch. Grab my little power button screwdriver. Okay, GPU fans are spinning. GPU lights up as well. The CPU is kind of getting hot. So good news, the CPU is not dead. Let's go. We didn't get scammed, ladies and gents. Shout out to the seller on Facebook for, just being a decent human being. Anyways, let's go over all the parts that make up this budget PC build. Starting off is the CPU, and it's the Ryzen 3 1200. It's a 4-core processor, and I'm really interested to see how this performs. This CPU can be purchased for around $25 on the used market, and honestly, you shouldn't pay more than that. Now, before someone goes off and types in the comments how this Ryzen 3 isn't the best choice, trust me, I know, you're not wrong, but this is just what I happened to purchase. And honestly, I just want to show you a budget build. I really enjoyed testing out older hardware more than new hardware, because with new hardware, you know exactly what you're gonna get. But with old hardware, you kind of don't know until you just test it out, so it makes it more enjoyable for me. I recommend fully watching the video before you comment. I'm pairing the CPU with this Gigabyte B450 motherboard. It has 4 DIMM slots, 1 M.2 slot, and built-in Wi-Fi. AM4 motherboards have gone up in price, but you can find some for pretty good deals if you shop used, or you can expect to pay around $70 for a new one. This motherboard is what's making this whole build upgradable. Thanks to the absurd amount of AM4 CPUs, you have a lot of options to choose from, and since we're starting all the way at a first-gen Ryzen 3, anything will give us a performance boost. I'm going to combine our motherboard with a 500GB M.2 SSD and a kit of RAM. For storage, I recommend at least a 500GB NVMe SSD. I got this Timetech one for $35 on Amazon. I've never used them before, but it was the cheapest one at the time, and it has good reviews. 500GB is enough to load Windows and a few of your favorite games, but unfortunately for you Warzone players, this drive will fill up pretty fast. For RAM, the Ryzen 3 only supports a max speed of 2666 MHz, but I recommend a minimum spec of 16 GB clocked at 3200 MHz. You can definitely buy RAM that will run at a faster speed like 3600 MHz, but if you at least get 3200 MHz RAM, it will support future CPU upgrades. To install everything onto the motherboard, it's super simple. For the CPU, all you do is pull back this little lever until it's straight up, and then lower the CPU into the socket. It should just drop right into place. There's a little triangle on the motherboard and a little gold triangle on the CPU, and you'll want those to line up, and then just lower the lever back down. For the RAM, you'll want to locate what slots say 1 and 2, and you'll fill those ones up first. If you have 4 sticks, then it doesn't matter. Just push these little plastic clips out and line up the notch in the RAM stick with the slot in the motherboard, and then firmly push down, and you should hear 2 clicks for the clips. Installing the SSD is super simple as well. Locate your NVMe slot, take out the screw. Sometimes it's on the motherboard already, and sometimes it's in a little baggie in the motherboard box. The SSD kind of has the same notch as the RAM sticks, so just line it up and push it into place, and then screw that bad boy down. How can I forget the CPU cooler? Maybe I'll just forget the thermal paste too. But depending on the seller you buy your CPU from, you might get lucky and get a stock Ryzen cooler. But if you didn't, just buy any budget cooler on Amazon. Now for the case that's going to be holding all of our components. It's a Montech Air 100 ARGB. I put up a poll asking if you guys liked white cases or black cases more, and majority of the votes were for black, so that's what I'm going with. At the time of recording, I bought it on sale, but if it's not on sale for you, then you can expect to pay around $70 for it. It's a micro ATX layout with a design tailored towards airflow. I mean, air is literally in the name. It has this cool swing out tempered glass side panel, and most importantly, it comes pre-installed with 4 ARGB fans, which are controlled via a button on the top of the case and a fan and RGB hub in the rear of the case. Installing the motherboard into the case is as easy as getting the IO shield in place, lowering the motherboard down, and ensuring all the standoffs are in the right place, then just screw that puppy down. Powering this affordable and upgradable gaming PC is this Corsair power supply. It's 550 watts and that'll be plenty for this system. It also has all black cables, which is a nice plus. I bought this power supply used for $20 and honestly, I recommend you do the same. I mean, of course, if you're not comfortable with buying used, then go ahead and just skip it. But if you are, then you can save a decent amount of money. If you go the new route for a power supply, you're looking at spending a minimum of $50 on a reputable 500 watt unit. Now for installing the power supply, there is just one rule when it comes to it, and that is make sure the fan is facing in the right way. 90% of the time, you want the fan facing downwards so it pulls in fresh air. The last and final part is the GPU, and the one that I picked up in the Facebook Marketplace deal is the EVGA GTX 1060 3GB version. It's actually the super clocked edition, so I guess we will see if the performance is super or just super bad. They can be purchased for around $70 on the used market, but if you're spending that much, I really recommend you try to find a 6GB version instead. Now you can get the RX 580 for around the same price, but that's not what I bought. Installing the GPU has to be the most rewarding step because that means you successfully built your gaming PC. Well, hopefully it went successful. For me it did, and it turned on first try. Let's go, baby. Ooh, this thing turned out. The build turned out pretty good and it cost me $285.40. Now as a disclaimer, if you were just to buy everything that I have linked down below, it would cost you right around $350 to $400. And for that price, it's nothing crazy. But if you do take the time to shop around and buy used on some of the core components like the CPU, GPU, and power supply, you can save a decent amount of money, and then this build will offer better price to performance. So the seller said that this CPU and GPU combo offers PS4 equivalent performance. Let's see if they're lying. It is a dated console now, but so is this hardware. The PS4 aims for 30 to 60 FPS in games, so let's see how this computer stacks up. In good old Fortnite, I ran at 1080p with performance mode enabled, at 100% 3D res scale, far view distance, and everything else was on low. I also decided to cap the FPS to 60, just to see if it could hold it steady. And it played exactly how I expected to, kinda bad. I knew this little Ryzen 3 would give us issues from the start, but it was still playable and it averaged 58 FPS. I decided to test it again though, and I kept all the settings the same, except this time I uncapped the FPS and dropped the resolution scale from 100% to 80%. And after applying those settings, it actually did give us a little performance boost. Although it was still pretty laggy, I did manage to get a couple kills. Sometimes it would lag up so bad the mouse would literally freeze up, like when I was fighting this guy. He honestly must be really bad or playing on a worse system than me because I was able to kill him. I tested Apex Legends next and I set it to 1080p with medium textures, and then everything else was on low. It averaged 115 FPS, which was more than I expected, but I'll let the footage speak for itself. As you saw from the benchmarks, this system did alright, but it's clear that the CPU is definitely the bottleneck here. In Fortnite, it would reach 100% utilization, but then in Apex, it would be pinged at literally 100% like the whole time, which is why the game was jumping around like a tweaker. Say you had this same exact system and wanted to upgrade something, but don't have enough money to upgrade both the CPU and GPU. What should you do? Well, the CPU is the bottleneck, so I would start there. I swapped out my Ryzen 3 with a Ryzen 5 4500, and this CPU can be had for around $60 to $80, and I scored mine for $65 shipped on my Facebook Marketplace. It's not a super common CPU, but you can buy it on AliExpress, or if you want a more readily available CPU that can be bought just about anywhere, you can get the Ryzen 5 3600 for around the same price. As I was swapping out the CPUs, my PC literally turned on mid-swap. Luckily nothing broke, but it was kind of scary, so this is your reminder to turn off your power supply if you're going to be tinkering with your computer. Round 2, baby. I loaded back into Fortnite with the same settings, performance mode, 80% res scale, and uncapped FPS. And it's safe to say this was a way better playing experience. This time we averaged 156 FPS with a 1% low of 47. It was playing better, but I suck. And of course Fortnite had the audacity to ask me if I enjoyed the match. No, I didn't enjoy this stupid match, what the hell? Loading back into Apex Legends, we saw a pretty nice improvement in performance. It averaged 124 FPS with a 1% low of 81. And since we are no longer bottlenecked by the Ryzen 3, it's clear that the GPU is now the bottleneck, but it still performed pretty good. And with the upgraded CPU, I tested out a few more games. In Call of Duty Warzone, I set it to 1080p with the balance settings preset. The game played pretty good and didn't look too bad. It averaged 74 FPS with a 1% low of 39. I got freaking beamed from behind, and then I got wrecked by someone named Doja Cat in the gulag. Are you kidding me? In GTA 5, I set it to 1080p with medium settings. TAA was on, as well as VSync was to prevent it from stuttering. I had the shadows set to the softest, and then under advanced graphics, I turned everything on. With those settings, it played nice and smooth, and I was able to commit crimes with no issues. It averaged 112 FPS with a 1% low of 85. The system can even handle some AAA titles. I ran the in-game benchmark in Cyberpunk at 1080p with the low settings preset, and it averaged 56 FPS with the 1% low of 38. Typically you want to aim for 60 FPS in story mode games, but hey, we weren't too far off, and it's not like it was super stuttery or anything. Overall, this computer performs pretty good, especially after only upgrading the CPU. A next upgrade that I would recommend is definitely the GPU, and since we're starting all the way at a 1060 3GB version, you have a lot of options that would be considered an upgrade. You could upgrade to a 1070, a 1080, or an RTX 3060, or like RTX 2060. Or on AMD's side, you could start with the RX 580, but I would personally recommend the RX 5700 XT. They sell for around 120 to 160, depending on the model you get, and it performs very closely to the RTX 3060, but it's at a cheaper price. All those GPUs would be a great pairing for the Ryzen 5 4500 or the Ryzen 5 3600. But the upgrades don't stop there. You can upgrade all the way up to something like the Ryzen 7 5800X 3D, and with that CPU, you'd be able to handle any GPU at basically any resolution. After upgrading the CPU in this gaming PC, my new cost is $330. Now once again, if you don't shop around for good deals and just buy everything now, then you will spend right around $400 to $500. But it's crazy because you can still use this computer for years to come. Don't let anyone trick you into thinking that AM4 is dead and you need to spend more money on a newer Intel or newer Ryzen based system. AM4 is still the best option for people truly on a budget. And speaking from experience, people don't have a ton of money just to spend on new computer stuff, so don't be afraid to buy used or even older hardware. But if you do have more money to spend, then I do recommend maybe getting AM5, because at the end of the day, it is newer and it will just last longer. I will have everything linked down below for you to check out, as well as all my part recommendations throughout this video. So with all that information out of the way, what are your thoughts on this computer? Go ahead and drop your comments down below. I do plan on upgrading the GPU in this system, but that will be for an upcoming PC flipping video. Anyways, smash a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you loved it, and be sure to turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next time I upload. And if you want to see a repeatable $500 computer build, then watch this video next. Peace.